How long does it take for us to forget? How long does it take for us to forget who Jesus is? How long does it take for us to forget who we are as believers in a loving God and followers of the Prince of Peace, the Messiah, the Christ, the Son of the living God? For Peter, this only took 6 verses in the 16th chapter of Matthew. Peter had just pronounced to the world that Jesus was the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Then 6 verses later, Peter took Jesus aside and rebuked him, saying, "God forbid it, Lord. This must never happen to you." There are only 6 verses between Jesus praising Peter and calling him blessed to Jesus calling Peter Satan and rebuking him for being a stumbling block because Peter had begun setting his mind not on divine things, but on human things. In just 6 verses, we as listeners went from being in awe of Peter's insight and courage to being relieved that we are not in his shoes. But the truth is, we are no different than Peter. You see, Peter loves Jesus. Peter is connected to Jesus, and not just in some thought-provoking doctrinal way. Peter is connected to Jesus through an actual relationship, one filled with ups and downs, the highs and lows of life. Peter is connected to Jesus not by the mind, but by the heart. The mind can lay things out in black and white, but the heart doesn't do that. Relationships of the heart are messy and holy. They are sacred. Peter knows who Jesus is and believes in his message. And even the thought of having to live into this message without Jesus by his side is unbearable. In 6 verses, Peter let the worries of the world, the concerns of human things, suck the hope of Christ right out of him. Peter does not even want to entertain the thought of losing his friend and being alone without the real presence of Jesus to guide him along the way. The overwhelming power of grief and fear can easily strip hope from us and can change the way we live our lives. It can move us from the experience of feeling blessed to the unexpected feeling of being a stumbling block, a barrier of separation for the love and grace of Christ. COVID-19 and the stressors of earthly human things have taken so much from us, and no one is exempt from these losses. As a community of faith, we have lost the ability to come together and share our lives with one another face to face. We have lost the ability to come together and worship as one body, sharing in the unity of confession and absolution, songs of praise, and the real presence of Christ in the shared bread and the common cup. With or without even noticing, it is our shared common worship each week, that shared life from the heart, that renews our hope in God's love. It is this that has kept us focused and our minds set on the love and hope of divine things, letting the struggles of human things slip away. As liturgical people, we need to realize that something draws us to this type of worship and relationship. Not everyone can say this. Others are drawn to divine things in other ways. Though liturgical worship was not designed for things like COVID-19, we need to hold on to the hope that we will return to what feeds us, but there are other ways. Remember, we are no different than Peter. Peter's knowledge of the divine continued to grow as he walked beside Jesus, and it didn't stop growing as he walked in the love of the risen Christ. Part of Peter's growth from head to heart came from his ups and down relationship, his messy and holy relationship with the Apostle Paul. Paul helped Peter focus on a bigger picture, new ways to experience the divine, new ways to be a believer and follower of Jesus. I think Paul gives us a good lesson today in how to stay connected to the divine and each other during this time of social distancing and fasting from in-person worship and the sacraments. Here is some guidance on how to not become a stumbling block and stay focused on what is important and right. Paul says, "Let love be genuine. Hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all. If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave room for the wrath of God, for it is written, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay,' says the Lord. No, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. For by doing this, you will heap burning coals on their heads. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." For today, during this disorienting time, we can consume these words from Paul, which teach us how to take up our cross and follow Jesus by focusing on divine things and not earthly things, but by letting go of what causes us and others to stumble, and only embracing and sharing that which brings healing and wholeness to ourselves and others.